We're diving into the latest NFL mock drafts following the first big wave of free agency, focusing on the predictions from Mel Kiper and Daniel Jeremiah. Let's kick things off with Kiper, who is often considered the godfather of mock drafts, and take a look at his top picks. First up, Kiper has Cam Ward going first overall to the Tennessee Titans. Moving on to the next few picks, we see Abdul Carter and Shatter Sanders going early, followed by Travis Hunter. In fact, it's a strong showing for Colorado players in the top 4. Next, Ashton Gentry falls to the Raiders at number 6. If you were hoping for Gentry to land with your team, the top running back and tight end prospect isn't available. Tyler Warren, another highly anticipated player, heads to the Jets at number 7, further narrowing the options. Jackson Dart also makes a strong showing, landing in the top 10 with the Saints. As we near pick number 12, we see Omari Hampton heading to the Cowboys. While some of these picks don't have a direct connection to the Broncos, we finally get closer to Denver's pick at number 20. Drum roll, please. Kiper has the Broncos selecting T. McMillan, a wide receiver from Arizona. Let's take a closer look at McMillan, a player we haven't talked much about before. Standing at 6 feet 4 inches and weighing 219 pounds, McMillan was the highest ranked recruit in Arizona high school history. He initially committed to Oregon but ultimately chose to stay home. Although his accolades speak for themselves, let's break down what McMillan offers as a prospect. He's got the size that fits the traditional NFL receiver profile at 6 feet 4 inches. While his 40-yard dash time of 4.54 seconds isn't blazing, it's solid. However, he doesn't have elite separation speed, especially on deep go routes. That's not necessarily a deal breaker though. Look at someone like Courtland Sutton, who has had a great career with similar skills. Plenty of wide receivers have succeeded without top-tier 40-yard dash times, making up for it in other areas of their game. McMillan's stats from the past 2 years are impressive. Scouts often point to his 2023 season as the most telling, as 2024 saw a slight dip in his numbers due to an injury he was dealing with. Despite the setback, McMillan's 2023 performance is seen as a more accurate representation of his true potential. Now, as much as I respect Kiper's insights, I have some reservations about this pick for Denver. There are a couple of reasons why I'm not fully on board, and I'll explain them next. First, I'm not sold on McMillan as my top receiver in this draft class, and Kiper overlooked a receiver I prefer, who we'll discuss later. Second, this draft class isn't great for wide receivers. Does Denver need one? Well, depending on who you ask, you'll get different answers. From the perspective of Sean Payton and George Payton, I don't think so. Why? Because they didn't make significant moves for a wide receiver in free agency. If it was a pressing need, they likely would have addressed it then. Plus, this receiver class is one of the weakest in recent memory, so I doubt their thinking was, let's rely on a mediocre draft class to fix any receiver issues we might have. Given that I don't think Denver sees a receiver as a major need and I don't think McMillan is the best option in this class, I'm having a hard time selling this pick as a home run. In fact, I don't think any receiver in this draft would have even gone in the first round last year. If you look at players like Marvin Harrison Jr., Romo Dunn, Brian Thomas, and Malik Nee, none of the current prospects stand out as true first-round talents. These players don't scream future cornerstone of your passing game for the next 8 to 10 years. When you're picking a wide receiver in the first round, those are the kinds of expectations you should have. So it's not my preferred pick, and that's my take on McMillan. Now let's dive into Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, which starts very similarly to Kiper's. He has Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Shatter Sanders, and Travis Hunter going early on. As we move through his picks, we see Genty heading to the Raiders just like Kiper's mock. However, Jeremiah doesn't have Warren going to the Jets, so there's a chance Warren could still be available for the Broncos. If Denver wants him, they'll likely need to trade up with the Dolphins because I can't see Warren getting past Indianapolis at pick 14. As we approach the Broncos' pick at number 20, we see a different set of selections. Matthew Golden goes to the Cowboys at 12, while Omarion Hampton lands with the Colts at 14. With the 20th overall pick, Jeremiah has the Broncos selecting Omarion Hampton, a running back from North Carolina. I know some fans might be frustrated with this pick, but let's take a closer look at Hampton, just like we did with McMillan. At the Combine, Hampton measured in at 6 feet tall and 221 pounds. running a sub 4.5 second 40-yard dash. While he's often labeled as a bowling ball or bruising back, he actually moved faster than expected for a player with his reputation. In college, he was known for his physicality, especially in goal line situations. His impressive combination of size, strength, and speed makes him a standout, and he could be a great fit for the Broncos. Let's break down his profile further and see what he brings to the table. Hampton's playing style is built on physicality, and he's tough to bring down. He requires multiple defenders to stop him and has the speed and burst to break off long runs. Over the past 2 seasons at North Carolina, he's posted back-to-back 1,000-yard and 1,500-yard seasons, which is impressive. There were concerns about how he would perform once Drake May left, thinking that without the quarterback to worry about, opposing defenses could focus solely on him. But Hampton proved those concerns wrong by continuing to produce, even adding more yards and the same 15 touchdowns. I believe Hampton is the type of player George Paton was hoping to get with Javonte Williams. If Paton is looking for his next Javonte Williams, he might see Hampton as that guy. While I'm not in Denver's war room and can't accurately gauge how much influence Paton and Paton each have in decisions, I'd guess it's more like a 70-30 split in favor of Paton. That said, if Paton feels that Hampton is his next running back after missing out on Williams due to the knee injury, this could be a great fit for the Broncos. Hampton shares a similar bruising style to Williams, but he might even be faster, making him an intriguing option. For those of you concerned about the pick because Hampton's often projected as a second-round choice in mock drafts, I don't mind reaching for a player at number 20 if you truly believe in his potential. I typically value selecting the best player available, but let's consider this. If the best player on the board at number 20 happens to be James Pierce, an edge rusher from Tennessee, do you take him? The Broncos already have strong edge rushers like Kiper, Benito, and Jonas Ellis, and you selected DeAndre Tillman last year. Do you really need another edge rusher? It's possible that the best player available at number 20 could be an edge rusher simply because that position group is so stacked in this draft. So, I don't mind reaching for a player like Hampton if Paton and Paton are convinced he's the right fit for the Broncos. After all, plenty of running backs have been taken in the second round and turned out to be major successes. Would it have been a reach if teams had taken Jonathan Taylor or Nick Chubb in the first round? At the time, it might have seemed that way, but looking back, those picks were great decisions. Imagine if a team took Derrick Henry in the first round. At the time, that might have seemed like a reach, but now, we all know how valuable he is. Last year, Paton showed he's not afraid to trust his own judgment. Despite others thinking that B. Nix was a second-round guy, Paton went after him in the draft without hesitation. So if Hampton is Paton's guy, and he feels confident about his defense after making key signings like Hunga and Greenlaw, and his tight end group with Evan Ingram is solid, he might see running back as the last piece of the puzzle. Paton isn't likely to take the risk of waiting for Hampton to fall to round 2, where there's no guarantee he'll still be available. If Hampton's seen as a key addition to the team, it could be worth reaching for him to ensure he's in Denver's future plans. Now imagine if we went with a backup edge rusher instead of focusing on a key player like a running back, and that backup edge rusher doesn't make a big impact. In the long run, that could have a much smaller influence on the team's success compared to a running back who could be a cornerstone for 2025 and beyond. That's the risk of taking the best player available when you already have 2 solid edge rushers. So, which pick do you think is better, McMillan or Hampton? Personally, I prefer Omarion Hampton. I think this pick would be a better fit for the Broncos than T. McMillan, but I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let's move on and check out the rest of the mock drafts from Kiper and Jeremiah. We'll look at the players who went from picks 21 to 32. Starting with Kiper at pick 21, he has Derek Herron from Pittsburgh. Earlier I mentioned that McMillan isn't my top receiver. Matthew Golden is my favorite wide receiver in this draft class. Kiper has Golden going to the Packers, while Jay Barron heads to the Vikings. Over in Jeremiah's mock, he has Jackson Dart going to the Steelers, with McMillan going to the Chargers. If that sounds familiar, it's because the Chargers seem to always go after tall receivers who struggle with vertical speed like Mike Williams and Quentin Johnson. Kiper also has some interesting picks between 25 and 28. I was a bit surprised to see how far Malachi Starks fell, though I'm not sure the Ravens need help next to Kyle Hamilton. They could take a different direction. Meanwhile, Jeremiah has some great names in his final 4 picks of round 1, including Shamir Stewart, who tested extremely well at the Indianapolis Combine. If the Broncos don't go with a receiver or running back at pick 20, defensive tackle could be a solid choice. Players like Derek Herron or Walter Nolan would be great options. Nolan actually ended up with the Eagles in Kiper's mock draft. If Denver wants to bolster their defense, I'd suggest looking at interior defensive linemen like Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, or Derek Herron. Those names are worth keeping in mind. Before we wrap up, let's finish off with a fun little challenge since we talked about running backs today. With the offseason dragging a bit, I thought it'd be fun to end this video with a topic and see if we can name the same player. Let's count down from 3 and we'll see if we come up with the same name. Okay, I've got one ready. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Kenneth Walker, Seattle Seahawks running back. And that's all for today's video. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the like button on your way out.